Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Hope you all had a wonderful weekend. Welcome to the Research Spotlight hosted by the Social Sciences Academic Research Center. Today, we have two students on our panel who will talk about their research experience. They will share what they research, how, and if they have any recommendation of labs and what the lab looks like. Before we start, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Nayeli Lopez, and I am currently a SARC peer consultant. I am currently a fourth year double majoring in education science and social policy and public service. I am also joined by my fellow colleague and SARC peer consultant, Emily. If Emily, you would like to introduce yourself.
Yes, hi everyone. My name is Emily Ramon, and I am a fifth year transfer student majoring in sociology. Okay, so I just want to remind you all that if you have any questions, please submit them through the Zoom Q&A feature, which is located at the bottom of your screen. We will be addressing all questions at the end, or it depends, right? We'll feel it out and see if it's like appropriate at the time. And we will be recording this session. And without further ado, let's get started. Our panelists can go ahead and introduce themselves, and we'll start off with Elizabeth.
Good morning, well, good afternoon now. My name is Elizabeth Hafen. I am a fourth year double majoring in political science and psychology. I feel like I have done it all in terms of research. I first got into research through the SAP program, and then I did Europe. And in conjunction with Europe, I did my honors thesis. And then I done SERP in the summer. And I've also done, I've also been a research assistant to a graduate school student. So I feel like I have a little bit of knowledge in terms of research. So I'm excited to answer any questions that any of y'all might have.
Hi everyone, my name is Saad Iqbal. I go by he, him, his pronouns. I'm a double major in psychological science and criminology law and society. Like Elizabeth, I also did the SAP program, highly recommend it. I've also done several other research positions, whether it be an RA in a lab. I've been an RA for a grad student specifically, and I've also done my own Europe, one with Emily actually, and then another is my senior honors thesis in the social ecology honors program. So I've kind of done it where I've been in multiple steps of the research process and excited to come and be here to talk to all you all.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for being here today and for being willing to share your experiences with all of us. I would like to get started with some questions. And just a reminder to everyone, feel free to ask your own questions as well through the Q&A feature. First, what was research something you always wanted to do?
I can go first. Research, I didn't even know what research was when I got into UCI. I know like they market UCI as a top research school, like everyone does research here. And I thought they were talking about professors. So I was like, okay, cool. Like that sounds fun. And I didn't know like students could also do research. And I found out about it through SAP, that students are encouraged to do research, that it is beneficial for them to do research. And I think doing through SAP that I found that it was something that it's highly recommended if you want to go to graduate school, that you should get that first step in, since in graduate school, that's what you're gonna be doing most of the time, doing research. And so I didn't even want to go to graduate school back then. And so now being involved in research, I feel like now I'm kind of led me to that pathway of doing research in order to go to graduate school and be successful in graduate school.
As for myself, I'll say no, I didn't know that I wanted to do research, but super wish I got into it sooner. I got into it in my third year, but definitely wish that I got into it like right in my first year. And it's definitely not for upperclassmen. I think there's a idea, thought process that students have that research is for upperclassmen and graduate students only, but not at all. My first year mentee, when she became my mentee, like immediately I wanted her to go right into research to see, is this something you want to do? Because like she told me like, oh, I want to pursue a PhD. I told her like, then you need to get into research. So I helped her out, got her into 2 labs. So really, test it out whether or not you want to do it or not. Test it out for a quarter, for a year, and then see where it goes. I highly recommend it. But I definitely, for myself, I want to pursue a PhD, and I've loved research.
All right, awesome, thank you. So I know you all kind of talked about like your research journey, and if you can just talk about where it started a little bit. I know you mentioned it. If you can go more into depth, maybe with like programs or avenues that you took in order to begin this research journey. So yes, we'll just start there.
I can go first for this one. So I got into research by talking to my professor for one of my classes. She was actually a graduate student. And so her research was in moral psychology, and that sounded really cool to me. And so I went to her office hours a few times, emailed her, super, super nice. And so I asked her like eventually, are you looking for any research assistants? And she said, no, unfortunately, but here's what I can do. I can let other folks in my lab know, does anyone know? And so she connected me with a couple folks, and one of the persons, his name is Jacob, we chatted over email, we met in person, we talked about what our interests and why I want to be a research assistant. And one thing I will say is like, be very upfront. Like his research, although cool, it's in political and sustainable psychology, was not at all like close to mine. I'm interested in clinical and forensic psychology, 2 very different parts of psychology. But what I told them was, I just want to learn research. I just want to learn everything I can. I just want to know everything. I just want to learn the skills. And so he was like, okay, yeah, let's work it out. And so I helped him out on his project. And so that's how I got into research. It really stems from you taking that first step to contact folks. And you're going to get a lot of no's more than yeses. I also emailed a bunch of faculty and other grad students, got ghosted. Ghosting is going to happen, an inevitable truth. And so, it's always, it's a numbers game. You apply to a bunch, you'll get a few responses, honestly, when it comes to this. And so that's how I got into research. And so I've been super thankful of him. If I didn't have him, I don't know where I would be. And so just always remember, it's to really just capitalize on your experiences to the best of your abilities.
Yeah, so my journey started in SAEP, which stands for the Summer Academic Enrichment Program. There was a question in the Q&A about what it was. And it's a 5-week, I guess, intensive program where you go in and you learn about research methods and how to write a research proposal. And so it's all free through the social science. If you do get accepted, you get to take the classes for free in the summer. You get housed for free, and you get a stipend as well. And you also get fed in the house for free when I did it. And so it's a really nice program. It's intended for first gen students that don't really understand the system. And so when I went in, I was like, I don't even know what to do. I was kind of, my biggest goal was attending college. And once I was here, I was like, well, now what? Like, now what do I do? And so it's kind of intent to kind of lead you into the next path. And for that, I was graduate school, and an avenue to get there is through research. And so I did my little research project through SAP. And when I got out, I got an email through SAP saying like, oh, if you're interested in doing the honors program, attend this info meeting. And so I attended thinking it was an info meeting. And it turned out like once I got there, they're like, okay, you're now in the honors program. Here, like start doing things. And I was like, what? Like, and it was only like, I want to say like 5 of us in that program. And it was a great experience. And so like, that's kind of how I got into the just regular job, but there's other ways to go about it. I got into being an RA for grad student by just emailing them. This grad student kind of went into my class, my poli-sci class, and he's like was handing out a like a survey. He wanted to survey political science students in something. I can't remember, but he passed out his survey. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is something I'm interested in. And so I remember asking the professor, like, who was this person? And so they gave me their contact info. I emailed him and I was like, hey, are you looking for any help? This is something I'm really interested in. He's like, yeah, come in, like start helping me out. And so that's how I got into it. And I was a lab assistant. I kind of was just like inputting numbers, and that was my whole role in that position. I was taking those surveys and putting them into the computer and making kind of numbers out of it, the survey. And so people I kind of tell people you have to look for opportunities. Sometimes like I went out of my way to kind of email this person just like, hey, this is something that sounds really cool. Can I join? And they're like, yeah, join. We need people. Come on over. So sometimes just taking that leap of faith and hoping for the best.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm actually gonna go ahead and take one out from the Q&A just because we do want to address all of your questions. We have one that says, for Europe, do we need to come up with a research proposal, or does Europe have it like a list of professors who we can contact, and what can we do?
Yeah, I can answer that one. I think it doesn't need both of us, but essentially for Europe, you kind of come up with it your own, and you do need a faculty advisor. And so what you do is, typically you email the professor, like bring some ideas. Like they don't need to be like, grandiose, super well thought out, but at least like, a place to talk, a starting point, and the conversation honestly just go from there. It doesn't mean they don't like your idea. It doesn't have to be like super well thought out. Just make sure like you have things to talk about. You have some articles. You can back up why you want to do this research. Make sure it's like not done already is more so the main point. And typically, you just have a conversation with the professor, and then you go from there. There isn't a list because it's kind of on you to come up with the idea. That's why it's called the undergraduate research opportunity program. It's your own research that you come up with. There isn't a list of like, oh, these ideas. But faculty, if you email them, they might have ideas that they want to do and do a smaller study instead of a bigger one. So always just email professors and have an honest conversation.
I want to add to that. I think that there's a common misconception that you have to already have a relationship with a professor for them to be your advisor. And that's completely wrong. You don't have to even have had a conversation with them. So what I did for my research was I was having a hard time finding an advisor because my research was on analyzing political attitudes and undergraduate Latinas. And so it's kind of very niche. And so I was like, I don't know anybody. I haven't really taken like a gender studies class or like a Chicano Latino studies class back then. So I was kind of having trouble doing that. And so I was told like, just email someone that is in around the same field. And I had never talked to this professor before. I sent them who I was. Like I sent them the emails like, hey, I'm doing research. This is my proposal, what I have so far. This is my resume. Would you be interested in advising me? And they're like, yes. And I had never had a conversation. I've heard great things about him. And that's how it started. Like I met him like a few weeks later after that, and we had a great conversation. But I didn't know him. And so all it takes is just writing an email. And even then, like the professor that advised me, Dr. Davin Phoenix, he does political attitudes, but that's how we're connected, right? He's a Black professor. And so I was kind of hard for him kind of saying like, well, I'm doing Latinas. How is that connected? But it's connected through the political aspect of it, political attitudes. And so it's, as long as somehow related, that's enough to build a connection. And so that's also very I feel like something important to know.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, both of you. Some really amazing insight. There's a few. We're just going to go towards the Q&A section. So I'll take one from there right now. Let's see. Someone asked, I know we've been talking a lot about like labs and like researchers and things like that. So someone asked, what are your thoughts on reaching out to researchers or labs outside of your major? And I think Elizabeth talked a little bit about this, but I don't know if there's anything else you want to add or yes.
Reaching out to researchers or labs outside your major, I think first of all, I think finding out about labs is also very something hard to do and something to take some skill to find. And so I think finding people that do labs is like great. And so if you find a lab that you're interested in, go for it. Like even if your major does not relate, if you find a lab that you're like, well, this is something I'm interested in, always just apply and reach out because you never know where it could go. Maybe you're like in the starting stages of creating a proposal or something like that. And so you do this lab and you're like, oh, I just learned something new that I want to integrate. And so that can take you a different place. So always just reach out. If you find something that you're interested in, always reach out.
Just to add on to, as long as you can explain why you're interested and explain the purpose, because I think, you know, if you introduce yourself as a math major going to a psychology lab, if you can't explain why you're interested, then what's the point? You know, faculty are always welcoming, but you just have to explain why you want to be interested. Because whenever you email any professor, you have to explain whether they're in your major or not. You have to explain why you're interested in their research. So as long as you can do that, I think you're good enough in terms of like reaching out to them, like explicitly explain to them why you're interested. Like, you know, if you're a criminology major, but you're interested in the political realm, you know, can you explain why? Obviously, there's a lot of intersection between criminology and political realm, but you just have to make sure you can explain how your research interests align with their research interests. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. We have a specific question for Saad, and they're asking the people who you emailed for research, did you meet them before or they were just random professors that you found online?
Mine was a professor. I was taking her class, so that was how I met with her. So that would be how I met with that person. And then she connected me with the other folks. In regards to how I met my honors thesis advisor, I just looked through the faculty website and looked up who was doing forensic psychology research. And he's the only one who does clinical forensic psychology. So what I'm interested. So that's why I contacted him. I emailed him. We met up, chatted. I took a couple of his classes. And then I introduced my honors thesis, and then that came about that.
All right, awesome. So we have another question here, and it says, I applaud you also to so many research email. I've applied to so many research and emailed so many people with no luck. Is there anything I can start in the summer?
I would contact TAs, any of your TAs or graduate students. They typically need a lot of help in the summertime. And then I will also mention SERP. I know Elizabeth, you mentioned that you did it. I never did it. So I think Elizabeth talk a bit more about SERP. I've heard a lot of great things about it. I just never personally went down that route.
So the SERP application already passed. It was in May 5th. But that's okay, like, you know, it can pass. But what SERP is you do the same thing. You give a proposal and you say, like, this is what I'm doing, this is what's going to go. Typically, most of the time, people, what they do is that if they want to get an early start, or sometimes they don't have time in the year, so they want to continue into the summer, they do that through SERP. So they already have like an established proposal, that they worked on and they just need a little bit more time to finish it, or conversely, they want to start it in the summer and continue it through the rest of the year. And what's really nice about SERP is that they give you like a stipend. It used to be $1,500 and now they doubled it. And so now it's $3,000 that they just give you. What you do with that money, it's up to you. You can use it for rent, you can use it for research supplies, whatever you want to do with that money, it's yours. And I think that's really, really nice. It's really nice that they doubled it this year. What you can do is, even if the SERP application already passed, you can still get an early start on that undergraduate proposal that you might present in the fall. Because sometimes in the fall, you have to present it by fall quarter. It might not be enough time for a student. And so you can start researching professors that you might want to work with. You might have to narrow down what you want to look at. You might start working on the bibliography that of like what previous people have done in the past, and just kind of getting an early start. So by when fall comes around, you're a little bit more prepared. You're ready to reach out to that advisor, and you already have like a, I guess, like a project bubble already planned out of how you want to go about your research.
Awesome, thank you. We do have another question. What type of task did you do in research? Was it like an actual lab, like STEM, or just inputting, as Elizabeth mentioned?
Yeah, so it depends. So when I was the research, the RA for the graduate student, it was inputting data. And so it was just going into an Excel sheet. He would give me like a stack of papers, and I would have to put it into that Excel sheet and kind of run statistic analysis on it. For my personal research, what I had to do during the fall was creating the proposal and the the literature review. Creating the literature review. In the winter was actually going forward and getting data. So whether that is interviews with whoever you're analyzing, or through surveys, you're obtaining that data and hopefully get a head start on analyzing it. And so what I used was SPSS. And so you can analyze that data through there. And then by spring quarter, you would finish analyzing it and you would present that data. That's kind of like the year timeline. Sometimes some people take more time. Some people take less time. It just depends. I took more time. So because I decided to do surveys, and for me, I had a high benchmark of how many surveys I wanted. I didn't reach that. And so it took me like 2 quarters to get as many surveys as I wanted. And so sometimes it could take more. It depends.
All right, awesome. So we have a question that if only one of you can just like chime in for this one. Do you need research experience to try and do a Europe proposal?
Not at all. A lot of students start with their first research experience being Europe. So, you know, apply. What's the harm in doing so? The worst you get is a no from a professor. Just move on. You know, I got a lot of no's. I'm sure Elizabeth and everyone else got a lot of no's. So just apply and talk to faculty. It's very typical for it to be their very first, and a lot of faculty do understand that. So that's the answer to that one.
Awesome, thank you. We do have many more questions, but I would like to ask this one that says, if we find a professor who does research on a topic that interests us, but it doesn't seem like they have a lab open for undergrad students, can we still email them for any opportunity to work under them as a RA, or are they probably not open to student help at the moment?
So there's a lot of ways that you can still connect with that professor. So you can reach out and say like, I'm doing an individual project, would you be my advisor? Instead of sometimes working on a lab with them, they already have a plan, they already have their research, and they're just getting that data. And so you would just come into their team already and get that. So conversely saying, I'm going to do all the work. I have my own research project. I just need you to advise me and tell me if I'm going in the right direction. Kind of help me narrow this down. And so sometimes professors are more willing to advise you because you're the one taking the lead. Whereas in the lab, you're doing like the work that they're already started. And so it depends on what you want to do. Sometimes, let's say that they're too busy. I've had it where I've emailed the professor saying like, hey, can I do research with you? Would you be my advisor? And they were just like, I'm too busy. I can't and that's just what it is. Sometimes they're just not available. And so I say, don't take it too personal, just move on to the next professor. If you still want to work with them, I just say, just take a class with them and just get to know them through office hours. And hopefully once you warm up to them, they would be more willing to work with you.
All right, so we are at the 12:30 mark, and we know you are all busy individuals. Thank you everyone for coming and having so many amazing questions. I know there's still a few lingering ones, so I want to propose that you can actually visit Elizabeth if you have more questions for them at the SARC. They are a peer consultant through the SARC, so you can make an appointment with them and talk to them one-on-one in a more like personal level if you have specific questions. And then Saad as well, he can share his information through the chat. So if you have specific questions for Saad's experience, definitely recommend to reach out to them. And kind of wanted to go back to that like SARC, we can help you there. So you don't have to see Elizabeth. You can go on our website and check out all the other peer consultants if maybe you're interested in talking to someone else, or you need support in terms of like resume, cover letters, even research as well. Myself and Nayeli are also part of like the research committee. So if you need also support in that area, we can help you as well. So please schedule a consultation with one of us and to talk about graduate school or research or anything you want. And we'll put the link in the chat for you all. But thank you so much. Everyone had amazing questions. And yeah, I actually want to ask Elizabeth and Saad if they have any last words to say, like any last for our students here.
Just saying thank you for inviting me, but also I'm happy to be a resource. I talk to a lot of students about research, especially in social ecology. But even if you're not a social ecology major, I'm always happy to talk and help you out. There's a lot of research labs in social science and social ecology. A lot of students go to either or. So just let me know whenever you want to talk, email me, always happy to speak.
Same thing here. Like I'm available through the SARC. I know the court is about to end, but I'll still be around in the social sciences. So you can always email me. I love to be a resource. So you can email me. I put my email down in the chat. So again, thank you for having me. I hope that it was a useful panel info session for everyone attending.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for joining us today, and special thank you to our panelists for taking the time out of their day to be here with us today. And with that, we conclude today's webinar. Thank you all so much once again, and enjoy the rest of your evening.